All right, and I am so excited. I'm glad you guys are in here. I'm glad we're finally rolling with this CTF, and I think it's going to be a good time. I really think you guys are going to learn a lot. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. I really think it'll be a good time. Hey, what's up? Okay. All right, guys, let's get down to business, and let's just start with some basics about CTFs. This one, as well as generic ones, too. So things that we're going to kind of go over today, what's a CTF, generic CTF prep, prep that you should be doing for this CTF specifically, incident response, system hardening, attack-in system, maintaining access. So all of the things associated with this CTF. The things that we're going to be hitting today is what's a CTF, generic CTF prep, strategic security specific CTF prep, how do you prepare for this game, and then incident response. Wednesday, we'll be covering the system hardening that you see about halfway down on this list. So we just want to kind of get you ready with what are the things you're going to need to do to be ready for this game, and then the most critical skill, which is going to be incident response. That's going to be your first super critical skill. Wednesday, your next critical skill will be system hardening. Next Monday, your next critical skill will be how to attack the other teams. And then next Wednesday, the last critical skill will be how to maintain access on the other teams. These are your critical skills. Okay, so let's get the basics. What's a CTF? Now, I've been playing on CTFs for, oh boy, God, am I that old, really? About 13 years. Pretty much before I started doing this stuff professionally, I was playing on CTFs. I competed in the DEF CON CTF a few times. I ran my own CTF website called rootwars.org. I've played in or managed or ran a lot, probably close to 100 CTF events. So they go all over the place. It's kind of hard to say what a CTF is. So when in doubt, ask Wikipedia, right? So Wikipedia says that it's a security competition. It's an educational exercise. It's designed to give you experience in securing a machine as well as reacting to the sorts of attacks found in the real world. And that's nice. The game can include reverse engineering, network sniffing, protocol analysis, system administration, programming, crypto, all kinds of cool things. And that's great. But I think the most important thing is when you get down to that last line on this slide where it says that there's two basic types of games, and that's an attack and defense style of game and a Jeopardy style of game. Now, you're going to find that a lot of the games out there on the internet tend to be the Jeopardy style of game. And what I mean by the Jeopardy style of game is I don't necessarily mean someone sits there and asks you trivia questions, but that usually is part of what's included. But you'll also, the game will generally be broken up into categories. And when the game is broken up into categories, you have to achieve certain things to score points in that particular category. And that's pretty much the most common style of Jeopardy type of game. It could be trivia, where they ask you like hacker trivia. It could be cryptogram type stuff. Here's this encrypted thing, I need you to decrypt it. It could be programming type things. Here's a programming challenge that you have to write some little code that breaks this or does a particular task. It can be a hacking challenge where there's a particular application that you have to, find some misconfiguration in it, or as advanced as possibly write a buffer overflow for it. It could be a reversing challenge where you have a binary and you have to reverse it to get a particular piece of data out of it. And then you generally score points on each of those tasks. Now, a lot of these Jeopardy-style games include lots and lots and lots of these different challenges. And this is the most common out there. The next style, which is the style that you're going to be playing in, is a network attack and defense style of game. I need to cite the reference where I got this screenshot, but it's a CTF website that's out there. They've got a network architecture that's really similar to ours. That's the reason I used the screenshot. But don't worry, when I give you guys the real slide, this will be cited. The German website that's running this are actually pretty good, by the way. So in a network attack defense, each team is given a machine or a small network to defend. So you'll be given a virtual machine, and you'll have to defend that. That'll be the server that you need to take care of, which is why incident response is such a big deal. That's your first super critical skill. You get this box, you got to defend this thing. Now, the way our game is going to work, you're going to get a box that you have to defend. You're also going to get a VPN gateway. This VPN gateway will allow you to connect to the lab network, the VPN network, and any host that you want to put behind this VPN gateway, you just put them on the same network. That way you only have to run one VPN client. So let's say 3 or 4 of your friends all get together, and you're like, yeah, man, it's going to be cool. Let's go for this. One guy runs one cow rather, and another person runs the surface. And same network, all the attackers. Or if you does lost audio? Audio is out. Okay, can you hear me now? Oh, weird. Okay, looks like we're back, huh? Okay, so I guess I'm not allowed to get up and get a rum and coke, huh? Oh, getting alcohol. Got it. All right, I guess I'll just have to sit still. All right, so let's go back to this. You're going to get a VPN gateway, and your VPN gateway is what you use to connect to the VPN. Now, you can put, because it's a router, firewall router, it's TF-Sense, you can put as many hosts behind that VPN gateway as you want, and they'll all be allowed to connect to the VPN. Now, that's great if, 5, 6 of you want to hang out at one of the people's houses and go for it, but what if you're remote? Well, since everyone can connect to the VPN, you don't all need to be in the same physical location. So as long as you have a means to communicate, everyone can jump on the VPN, connect to their respective team server, and they just need a way to communicate with each other. We'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so back to what Wikipedia says, depending on the nature of the particular CTF game, teams may either be attempting to take an opponent's flag from their machine, or the teams may be attempting to plant their own flag on their opponent's machine. And that's what we're going to be doing. So, generic CTF prep. If you need to play in a Jeopardy-style CTF game, it's kind of like getting ready to get on a TV show, Jeopardy, which is ungodly hard because they can ask you anything. So it's really tough to prepare for these Jeopardy-style CTF games. If you're going to get in games like that, you basically need to just focus on the stuff that you know they're going to hit hard. Most of these games will almost always include hacker trivia, hacker history. Most of these games will include questions about high-profile attacks and vulnerabilities, Stuxnet type questions and stuff like that, right?
almost always going to have some references to famous hacker movies. Movies like War Games, the movie Hackers, that type of stuff, Swordfish, famous quotes from those types of movies. That stuff is almost always going to be in CTFs. Skip the protocol and programming stuff. And the reason I say that is because I think it's just too difficult to cram for stuff like that. If you're going to cram on the stuff that's the stuff you can memorize, right? Hacker history, high-profile vulnerabilities, movies, that kind of stuff. You can Google famous quotes from a movie. You can look at, high-profile attacks over the last 10 years. You can look up the history of the, most top 100 hackers and stuff like that. These little programming and protocol things, like people will ask you in some of these games, like, RFC questions about specific protocols. They'll ask you, like, really obscure programming things that come from various programming languages. That kind of stuff, either you know it or you don't. I don't really think you can cram for stuff like that. Network defense and attack games, I would say off the top, in general, download all the patches for your most common operating systems right off the top. If they're Windows, I would say get all of the patches for every major flavor of Windows, from Windows 2000 all the way up through Server 2012, from Windows XP all the way up through Windows 8. And I would recommend that you have them at the ready. For the Linux, I would recommend building your own repo server, like building your own Yum server, building your own app server, and just carrying all the major flavors, right? Almost anything that anybody does in Linux these days is going to be Debian, Ubuntu, CentOS, Fedora. You can spend a weekend and download all that stuff and build your own Yum and app servers for most of that kind of stuff and get a lot of that kind of stuff cleaned up. Have trusted binaries for your most common OSs. If you have tools like Windows Forensics Tool Chest, you can get copies of cmd.exe, ipconfig, netstat. You can get trusted binaries, right? Because you don't know in a game if your binaries are going to be trojaned or not. The next thing I would say to do would be organize all of your exploitation and post-exploitation tools and scripts. So if you've got tools that do automated exploitation, I keep that stuff sorted. If you're going to be using Metasploit, I would build out text files that you can use to copy and paste all of your commands in for your most common attacks that you think you would use in Metasploit. For example, brute forcing, MSO867, FTP and database attacks and all that kind of stuff. I would build all that stuff out as much as possible so that they're pretty much ready to go. We call those click scripts. So you pretty much just either put them into some sort of batch or shell script, so you double click them and they just run, or you write them all out as text files so that you can copy and paste. Okay. Well, that's the generic stuff. I think that's pretty easy. What about preparing for this game? This game, I think you got a couple of things that you're going to want to do. Off the top, start with the basics. Is there a tutorial for building an app server? Why? Yes, of course there is. Nothing like Google to save you. Louis, I will furnish a link to a couple of those tonight. That's probably a good thing to throw in here. All right, so start with the basics. Most important, verify that wherever you're going to be playing the game from has good, fast, and stable internet. I know it sounds corny. I know it sounds stupid. Verify that wherever you will be playing the game from has good, fast, and stable internet. Verify that the network you will be playing from is secure and safe. Now, people ask the question, hey, would it be possible for somebody participating in this game to jump from the server that we are defending and attack us? They're not supposed to. That is correct, they're not supposed to, but is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Is it likely? I don't think it's very likely. You know, most people are playing in this game, they want to win the game. I don't think they want to try and jump on your machine. But that being said, take the necessary precautions. I would say the best thing to do is to make sure that you are on your own separate subnet for this game. Now, the fastest way that you could probably create your own separate subnet is to just go buy another little Soho, small office, home office, little router. You know, go to Best Buy, find one of these little $50 routers, and plug that in to the network that you already have wherever you're at. So, you know, you already have a home network or a network at your office. Lost my microphone there. So, I would say plug that little Linksys or D-Link router in and just use that. So let's say you're at your home and you've got a Linksys or D-Link router at your home. Then what I would say is on one of the 4 ports, internal LAN ports, plug in another router, and then that router will give out DHCP on a separate subnet, and now your subnet is completely isolated. So now somebody jumps off your attack server or whatever the case may be, there's nothing on that subnet for them to get. It's a nice, you know, fast way to create a whole nother network. Now, I found these little D-Link little wireless routers, and I found them for $29 at Best Buy. They're perfect for stuff like that. Let's say you don't do something like that and you just want to use, you know, your network at your house. I would say either turn off every other computer in your house or make sure the firewall is on for every other computer in the house. Or just make sure that no one else is on your subnet that you're using during the game. Okay. All right, make sure that every machine that's going to be an attacker, make sure that each one of those has at least 2 gig of RAM. If you're running the newest versions of Metasploit, you're going to notice that it can be a little bit of a RAM hog. So if you're going to try to run your Kali, Backtrack, or you know, or any type of attack machine, I would try to make sure that that machine has at least 2 gigabytes of RAM dedicated to itself. So if you're running a laptop and, you know, your laptop is running Windows, then you're going to run a virtual machine with Kali. Make sure that that Kali has 2 gig of RAM just to itself. Make sure that your machine has enough resources that you can do that. Verify that your defensive server has at least 4 gig of RAM. It would be really nice for you to be able to dedicate 2 or 3 gigabytes of RAM just to the defensive server. Now again, you're going to score points. Later on, you're going to learn this. You're going to score points for your ability to keep this server up and running. Now, knowing that lots of other people are going to be attacking it, lots of other people are going to be accessing it, being able to give this server as much RAM as possible is an absolute must. You've got to be able to give your defensive server as many resources as possible in terms of processor and RAM, because you're going to be scored on your ability to keep this sucker up and running. So if you have lots of people interacting with your server, both offensively and defensively, the more resources you can allocate to it, the better that server is going to be able to handle that. Okay, last thing. This game cannot, let me rephrase that, should not be played with VirtualBox. I will not support VirtualBox for this game. This game, I'm building these virtual machines on VMware Workstation 10. VMware Workstation 10. I strongly, one more time, strongly recommend that you use VMware Workstation 10 or the latest version of VMware Player. I know VMware Workstation has a cost, but you can download a trial version that's good for 30 days. Will VMware 9 be supported? The answer is yes. Come on, Javon. Javon, come on, man. You're my tech support. Come on, Javon. We pretty much should just say we're going to run whatever Javon is going to be running, because Javon still serves as tech support. Javon's laughing. For those of you who don't know, Javon is one of the students in one of the classes, and the other night when the lab had catastrophic hardware failure, Javon swooped in like Superman with his red cape flapping in the breeze, showed me how to do some little VMware tricks right here, some services to restart that got it all back to working. Javon saved the day. I haven't turned this off because I still need to take notes on what Javon told me how to do. So, Javon, our Lord and Savior, thank you. Okay. Step 2. Now that you got your basics done, does this work for VMware Fusion? The answer is yes. If you've got a recent version of VMware Fusion, you will be just fine. Okay, next thing, step 2, get your team organized. The first thing that your team needs is a way for your team to communicate. You have to have a way for your team to communicate. Set up a Google Hangout, Skype, IRC, Silk, whatever. I don't care how you do it, but your team needs to agree on a way that your team can communicate in real time. So while the game is going on, you should be able to chat with people or voice talk with people that are on your team. Huge, 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 super important. Next thing that you need to do is set up a means for your team members to share resources, documents, tools, files, etc. Same thing, a Google Hangout, Google Docs, SharePoint, one of these online project management systems, a wiki, anywhere that you can organize what you're doing. Because, starting today, you're going to start preparing for this game. So all the work that you're doing, scripts and things like that, tools, notes, output of tools, way the tools work, you want to have that stuff sorted. The second thing is you need to be conscious that several players may not be in your time zone. And I'm not talking like you're on the East Coast, they're on the West Coast. We've got participants that are in Singapore, Sri Lanka, Hong Kong, Australia. We've got people playing in this game that are all over the world. So I don't mean like not in your time zone like 3 hours ahead or behind you. I mean not in your time zone like 15 hours ahead of you kind of thing, 12 hours behind you. Literally, it might be 7 o'clock at night for you, but one of your teammates, it may be 9 o'clock in the morning for them. So you have to have a means of sharing resources that's real-time and a means for sharing resources where people can just get there any way that you want. Or, not any way that you want, but not so much worried about time. Will you be grouped into teams that day? You're actually going to be grouped into teams on Thursday. Okay, next thing, break your teams up by functions. So attackers, defenders, administrators, researchers, these are my recommended groups. It's your team. You can set them up however you want. But I strongly recommend that you have a group of people dedicated exclusively to attacking, a group of people dedicated exclusively to defense, system administration, research. You know, there can be overlap. You know, you can have a person who's doing 2 jobs. It doesn't mean that that's all this person does. But, excuse me, you definitely want to make sure that you spend adequate time on each area of the game. Okay, so players that do not have a team, you know, several of you signed up as a team. Players that do not have teams will be placed on teams by Thursday. So I know that's going to suck for some of you who are like, hey, we already got a group. What I'm going to try to do is the people who signed up individually, I'm going to start grouping them together first, trying to make the teams as evenly numbered as possible. Once we get to that point where they're fairly evenly numbered, then we'll start placing people onto groups that are already joined as groups. So if you're already joined as a group, and let's say you're 4 or 5 people or something like that, 5, 6 people, more than likely you might get 1 person added to your group, but for the most part your group should be intact. I won't be taking anybody out of the group. So if you signed up as a group, you do not need to worry that one of your team members will be using the group. Okay. Thursday, once you get the email letting you know that you have new members on your team, you need to quickly get your teammates integrated. Let them know about job roles, show them how to access resources, all that kind of stuff. Get them up on chat, get them up on your Google Hangout or, you know, whatever it is that you've got, get them rolling. I strongly recommend that you try to do this Thursday and Friday. The reason that I'm trying to get all the teams done by Thursday is we still have people who are signing up for this game and the class today and tomorrow. Like we've had probably like 7 people sign up in the last hour. So I know that there'll still be people signing up today, tonight, tomorrow. I realize that. So that's the reason I'm just trying to wait for Thursday. Thursday, I'm going to start pushing people into groups. Thursday night, Friday night, try to get your teams set up where they can all talk, where they can all work together, and then really try to slam hard over the weekend. Try to get everyone's tools and scripts together. I know you don't think this is going to be necessary, but trust me, it will be. Try to get your tools documented so that each team member has a place where they can go look and see what the tools are, what the tools are called, how these tools are going to work, and then more importantly, what do these tools look like in terms of our defensive mechanisms. So if we're running any defensive tools on our team and you're running one of these scripts, I need to know, if I'm your teammate, what this stuff looks like, because we need to know, hey, this is something that we run, and we run it every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, so we can figure out if we've been attacked or not. We need to know that. We need to know what it looks like. These are the kinds of things that your team needs to be figuring out. Okay, let's move on to your first most important skill. The first skill that you're going to need in this game is incident response. Hands down, you need incident response. When you get your virtual machine, you don't know the state of that virtual machine. Your virtual machine is going to be backdoored. Your virtual machine is going to be rootkitted. Your virtual machine is going to be loaded with vulnerabilities. And when I say vulnerabilities, I mean everything from weak passwords all the way up to custom buffer overflows. So you will have vulnerable services, vulnerable applications on your machine already. You will have lots of accounts with weak passwords on your machine already. You will have lots of Trojan services, tools, utilities. This box is a cesspool, okay? And you need to be able to start figuring out how jacked up this box is right away. Now, required incident response skill, your team needs to find and quickly remove all the backdoors. Find and quickly remove all of the rootkits. You need to do this because later on when you start working on the attack portion, if each team gets the same virtual machine, then any backdoor or rootkit vulnerability or weak password or buffer overflow, your team is going to have the same thing. The other team is going to have the same thing. So if you find something that maybe they did not find, when it comes time for you to attack, that might be a vulnerability that you can use against them. So the better you are at incident response, the better you will be when it comes time to attack the other teams. Really, really, really important. I designed this game so that you cannot score if you are not doing your own incident response and your own system administration. So, super important, find as many backdoors as you can, find as many rootkits as you can. Let me see, looks like we have a question here. Okay, Javon's question, will custom buffer overflows be patchable? Will we have the executables so we can set up payloads for attacking? The answer is yes. Yes, you will. So custom buffer overflows will in fact be patchable. Will you have the source code for everything that's on the box? You'll either have the source or you'll have the actual binary used to install everything. So you should be able to defend your own machine. You should be able to craft custom attacks for the other teams. So it's going to be a lot of fun. There'll be a lot of stuff for beginners and advanced. There'll be some pretty tricky stuff in here too. Okay. All right. Your first thing in dealing with a compromised machine, you need to find all of your running processes. So list all of your running processes. I'm going to show you the GUI tool, and I'm going to show you a command line tool. I would strongly focus on command line utilities if I were you. The reason is, if you're going to have more than one defender, more than likely you're going to have people logged in via command line to your machine. So if you're going to have, let's say, 3 defenders, you probably won't have all 3 people using remote desktop on your machine. You'll probably be logged in with command line access. So can you use tools like Task Manager? Can you use tools like Task Manager? Can you use Process Explorer? These are great to list all the running processes, but then you can use command line tools like Task List and PS List. Now I'm showing you both, right? So let's say, for example, Task Manager is native to Windows. Task List is native to Windows. Process Explorer is a system internals tool, so it's something that needs to be installed. PS List is a system internals tool. It's something that needs to be installed. Okay. All right. Okay, next thing. Once you list all of the processes that are running, you need to try and figure out which processes are malicious. So how do you do that, right? You go through the list of processes. Let's say you've got 50 processes that are running on your machine. Okay, hold on there. Looks like I got an issue with question being asked. Hold on. Do you get the virtual machine? All right, sorry about that, guys. My microphone died, so I'm on speaker. My fiance is here trying to be a super wife and cook, so that's what all the noise in the background is. Okay, so do we get the virtual machine the day of the CTF? You'll actually get the virtual machine before the CTF. I'm going to give you a practice virtual machine. That won't be the same machine that you'll be using for the game, but you'll use those throughout next week to test like VPN connectivity and all that kind of stuff. So each day I'll be giving the teams more stuff so that you can make sure that this stuff works. Okay? All right, so identify malicious processes, step 2. You do a process list or a PS list or a task list or whatever. You come up with every single process that's running on that machine, and then you got to look it up. So you got to look it up, figure out if that process is malicious or not. So once you know, hey, I've got these processes, I don't know if they're malicious or not, let me look up each one. For every one that I find that's malicious, you need to kill it. All the ones that are legit, you need to leave those running. So these resources like File Search Center, liutilities.com, these are all places where you can look up executables. So you have an exe or a DLL that the operating system is running or interacting with, and you want to look it up and it's malicious, this is where you do it. And then, of course, Google. All right, as soon as your malicious processes, now you have to kill them. So you can use Task Manager. You can right-click on a process and end, or you can use process kill processes that way. You can use the task kill command, and you can use the PS kill. Task Manager is going to be native. Task kill is going to be native. Process Explorer and PS kill are sysinternals tools that you'll have to install. All right, so that's processes. So your first thing was find all the processes, figure out which ones were malicious, kill all the malicious ones. The very next thing that you're going to want to do, find all malicious connections. So start with things like TCP view, which is a sysinternals tool, or netstat, and then you're going to want to look through that netstat output and figure out which connection is not from one of your teams. So you're going to need to take inventory. Here's where we get to that team organization. Once every team member connects to the VPN, you're going to need to figure out, hey, so-and-so, Tim, Bob, and Joe, here are their IP addresses. When I do a netstat on this server, their IP addresses are okay. Anybody who's not on my team, those are IP addresses, connections that I need to kill. Now, TCP view can kill connections. Netstat usually can't, right? Now, you have TCP kill in Linux. You don't have that in Windows. So you would probably have to do a netstat ANOB and list the binary so you could figure out which actual process ID that you need to kill, what exe that you need to kill. All these links down here for netstat command explain how to do that stuff I'm talking about, like list the actual process ID and the binary executable ID so that you can, an executable name so that you can kill it. That's listed right here in this netstat command, all these links below that. And then, like I said, killing Windows connections. Now, because you're defending a Windows server, you can use TCP view, you can use the task kill command, or you can download a tool called wkillcx, which is basically like TCP kill, but it allows you to kill processes from the command line. So again, you can use the task kill command, or you can use this wkillcx tool. And that's cool because that'll allow you to kill processes, and you can just specify the IP address too. So if you see a bad IP address, you can wkillcx that IP address, and it'll kill the process that's associated with that IP address. So some nice little things that you can do. So remember, start with processes, kill all the malicious processes. You have trouble with that, you quickly move on to connections. You see connections from somebody else, kill the connections. Okay? All right, next thing, find malicious services. So you may have an attacker who's installed a malicious service on your machine. So what do, right? You've got a malicious service on your machine. look for things like, for example, wireless discovery service, and a lot of people backdoor stuff like that in the real world. You may have some legit services that are misspelled, anything like that. Look for services. Services are important because it's how attackers maintain persistence. You might be in a situation where your machine is so messed up that you decide to reboot. So if you reboot your machine, well, what's going to restart after the reboot is probably going to be your services. So check your services to see, is anything auto-starting, auto-running at system startup? That could be a backdoor. Okay. Now, digging into how to do services, that's why I have these links here, because that's a bit much to try to cover right now, but it should be enough that it's helpful to you. Okay. All right, rootkit. Rootkits are pretty tough in today's modern version of Windows. If it was an older version of Windows, you'd have things like Hacker Defender and the FU rootkit and all those types of things. When we start getting into modern rootkits, there's really not too many of them out there. Most people are looking for other types of persistence. But it doesn't mean that you can't run tools like Rootkit Revealer and things like that. You should know how to look for rootkits because, like I said before, this machine may be rootkitted. So you should at least know how to look for rootkits, check the rootkits periodically, verify, especially at reboot, that you're not dealing with something like that. Okay. All right. Good technical incident response resources. There's a lot of stuff that I wasn't able to cover today. Things like presets. There's just way too much stuff. Like I can't teach a full-blown incident response class in 2 hours. But here's some good resources for this kind of stuff that I think will be pretty helpful. Okay. All right. So we hit all the major stuff today. What's the CTF? Generic CTF prep. Getting ready for this CTF, and then incident response. So Wednesday, we're going to talk about system hardening. So with your system hardening, that's going to be, installing patches, changing passwords, firewalling, setting rules, and things like that. Thanks for that link, Forensic Wiki. I'll throw that in the slides. All those types of things. And then I'll give you all of the information around what we can and can't do. So far, we're looking pretty good. We're floating at about 50 participants right now, something like that. So we'll have a couple of teams. We'll break you up into, 4 or 5 teams, and looking like it's going to be a pretty good game. I think this will be pretty good. This will be our first game. Like I said, it's going to be a pretty good hodgepodge of skills. Now, what I'm really hoping happens with you guys, I'm hoping that you guys play in more of these. I'm going to shoot for holding a game once a quarter. So if I can get a good game together once a quarter and you guys start competing, once you start seeing the layout of the game, later on what will happen is I will start giving you more servers to protect. So it starts with one server. I want you guys to get the feel of working with the game. You're going to have one Windows server. Next time, you'll have one Windows server, one Linux server. And then we'll give you a couple of servers. You have to build a little network. And then eventually what I'm hoping that by the time we get to the end of the year, end of 2014, we'll start having some pretty good, pretty complex games. And I'm really hoping that we can kind of make this a staple, just what we do around here. So I'm hoping that this will be something that you really like. This will be something that's really fun. And I'm really hoping that you get a lot out of this. So let's open it up. Does anybody have any questions for me? We went through this really fast. I thought it would take a lot longer. Will I give you this PowerPoint? Yes, of course I will. I'll be sending this out tonight along with the video that we just did that we're recording right now. Oh, man, I'm glad you're excited. I'm excited too. Yeah, it's going to be a lot. What version of Windows Server will it be? I can neither confirm nor deny that it will be a version of Windows. Yeah, John, that just basically means I'm not telling you. Just to clarify, yes, teams will be decided on the 5th. I will be notifying all teams of who their new teammates are on the 5th. Not a problem, Johnny. Okay, that's a really good question. If you're new and you don't have a lot of experience, what types of things should you be doing or what role should you be in for a team? I would definitely start on defense and research if you're new. Okay? Start on defense and research if you're new. If you're going to be attacking is going to be tough. The reason that I'm saying attacking is going to be tough is because now you know teams are going to be killing connections. Just be ready for that. Nothing is more frustrated than finding a vulnerability and then all of a sudden being kicked off the box. So it's going to be a lot easier to be a defensive person because you're just going to be running a ton of netstat and TCP view and stuff like that, trying to figure out who's on the machine. Are we going to be covering that? Yeah, we're going to be covering defense this week. That's going to be your system hardening. How will we establish our first contact with all of our teammates? I'm going to be giving all of your teammates your email addresses. How do we balance the teams? The first game really isn't going to be that balanced. I think as we start to get more teams to play our second and third game, I think the teams will be more evenly balanced. Most of the people playing are previous students of mine, so I'm going to try to keep it for the ones that I know. I'm going to try and group them together so that there's a fair amount of new people and fair amount of people who've taken a class with me. Is the version at least an active Microsoft Windows version? Yes, it is. In other words, you're not dealing with Windows 2000. What does a researcher do specifically? For all intents and purposes, you're the Googler. When stuff is happening in the middle of the game, you're going to find that there's going to be stuff that no one knows what it is. So it can be a real complex subject, like how do you, well, let me start with something easy, right? It might be something easy like how do you change passwords on multiple accounts? So you might have to go out and find a batch script that you can use to change passwords across a bunch of files. Or it could be something really complex like, hey, I'm running a particular application and I need to know if there's a public exploit for this particular application. So maybe that person goes out to exploitdb.com, finds that particular application, tries to see if there's exploits for it. A researcher could be doing something really advanced like actually researching, customizing an exploit for it. Okay, it's all over the map. But, I like having the beginners for researchers, specifically because your more advanced people are either going to be defenders or attackers, and they'll usually tell the Googlers what to look up. Do we know what processes or ports the scoring server is going to be looking for to determine if the box is up? You will not know that till game day. You will not know that till game day. On game day, you'll be furnished with a list of services that you have to run. Now, all those services will be running on your machine. All those services will be running on your machine. So how long is the game going to last? The game's going to last for 12 hours. Okay, on game day, is there only one game? It's only one game on game day. I really want this to, I just want to get through this and see how we do. Once I see how we do, my goal is to do it quarterly. I don't want to do it monthly. It's just a little bit too much work. But if we can get these quarterly and get the infrastructure, because now that the infrastructure is built and the scoring server is done and all this kind of stuff, now that this kind of stuff is done, it'd be nice to use this stuff more often, and then it also would be nice to keep tuning the game. How will students know if the connection is coming from the monitoring server or the attacking server? That's a really good question, and boy, I sure hope the defensive people can figure that out. Okay. All right, so to give you guys some good deadline kind of stuff, Thursday, everybody will have their teams. Monday, everybody will have their VPN gateway. So your VPN gateway should be up by Monday to test VPN connectivity. So I want to make sure that everybody can get connected to the VPN and, you know, all that good stuff, and hey, you know, hey, I'm working and we're all good. We want to make sure that happens. I want to give you guys a full few days to do that. What day will be covering defense? Today, the incident response, and Wednesday we'll be doing all defense. Next week is all offense. Is there a good way for team members to take breaks without screwing up the team? Well, that's really what good organization is. Because you're going to have people in different time zones, you can have people cover different, I mean, you can literally break up into shifts. So different people can cover different aspects of the game. Different people can cover different times. You know, that's the beauty of having a game where, you know, you're taking a week to prepare and then the game lasts nearly the whole day. You know, because you're going to find that a lot of people really can't sit for 12 hours straight. You know, hey, you might have to get up, go run an errand, come back, jump back on the game. Okay, I'm just kind of cleaning up some questions here. Okay, back to organization. I really think you should come up with, you know, like your own wiki, a Google Hangout, one of these project management websites. You know, there's a bunch of them that are free where they allow you to, you know, create a project and set up team members and allocate roles and share files. I've seen some of these that are, you know, pretty cheap and some that are free. Definitely look at setting up IRC, set up, what are they called, Ventrilo servers and stuff like that. You have to have a way that you guys communicate. Will I provide the 2 VMs? Yes, I will. Monday, you're going to receive your VPN. A week from today, you will receive your VPN server. So your VPN gateway, you will receive that straight away. Next Wednesday, you'll get a test server that you can put up, and my scoring server will check your test server. That will give you a couple of days before the game to verify that all services are running properly. Okay, and then that test server will also have TeamViewer on it so I can log into it and stuff like that. Is the scoring server IP going to change on game day? The scoring server will not be turned on until game day, so you won't know where the scoring server is. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, I think you guys did absolutely great today. I think you guys did a really good job. All right. So we got our basics covered. Remember, Wednesday we're going to really get down into system hardening. If you have people that you want to get them signed up, shoot them, let them know, right? I mean, we're getting down to the wire. I know people are still signing up. People have been emailing me all day, saying, hey, that they're trying to get their friend at work to sign up and stuff like that. Harass your friends because we're really getting down to the wire. For those of you who feel like you're beginners, don't worry that this game is going to be too hard. For those of you trying to harass your friends to join, try to convince them what I'm telling you, that it's okay for beginners. This game is designed for beginners. Okay, Haran, good question. Can we install stuff on the machine? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. You can install stuff. You're going to have full administrative privileges. You can install anything on this sucker that you want. You want to install an IDS, a host-based IDS like OSIC and stuff like that, I think it would be great for you to do stuff like that. Luis wants to know, what do I think about the book Counter Hack Reloaded? I think it's a very good book. Yeah, I actually know that SCOTUS pretty well. I've known him for a few years. So I thought it was a very good book. Okay, can you reboot your box? Yes, you sure can. Yes, you sure can. For those of you, again, another person talking about they're worried about being new, relax. Relax. You got to start somewhere. You really have to start somewhere. And this type of game, again, start as a defender, start as a researcher. The bulk of the defensive stuff is just finding rogue processes and killing them. I mean, hey, there's an IP connected to my machine. It's not on our team. Kill that. You can handle that if you're new. You need to Google something because another team member told you to Google it. You can handle that. So even if you're really, really new, you can do this. Okay, what if the scoring server tries to reach your team server while you're rebooting? Do you miss a score? Yes, you do. Okay, I haven't really talked about scoring because my plan was to cover it next week. But I'll give you a real quick synopsis of how scoring works. Scoring works by you being a good system administrator. You're going to be provided with a list of services that you have to run. So you will have a huge list of services that you have to run. I'm not kidding, a lot. All of these services need to be running. And your team flag needs to be in the specified location that I'm going to tell you. Next week I'll show you that stuff. So your services need to be up. Your team flag needs to be on your team server. Now, to score a point, the other team, all of their services need to be up, and your flag needs to be on the other team's server. So let's say, for example, Team 1 has all of their services up and running properly, and their flag is in the right location on their server. Great. Team 1 wants to score on Team 2. Team 1 gets on Team 2's box. Team 1 copies their Team 1 flag to Team 2's flag location and overwrites Team 2's flag. All of Team 2's services are up and running. Now, the scoring server sees that the services on Team 1's machine are up, the services on Team 2's machine are up. it notices that Team 1's flag is on Team 1's box, and Team 1's flag is also on Team 2's box. Team 1 scores. Okay? Now, you're going to get points for just having your services up. Those are defensive points. You will get more points for having your services up and your flag on your machine. That's your defense points. Now, if your services are up and someone else's flag is on your machine, you're going to lose points. You'll start to see your score go down. So there you'll be losing points. Someone has compromised you. Okay? Now, if your services are offline, you lose points faster. Okay? Because you're losing your system administration points. Okay? So we'll kind of cover more of the scoring next week. Okay, will the flags be verified by a hashing? I'm not going to be explaining that. Okay, does your flag have to be in a certain location on your opponent's machine, or can it be virtually anywhere? It'll have to be in a predefined location. What type of file will it be? It'll be a text file. Why do I need VM Player if I'm using a VPN to use your network? You need VM Player to host the defensive server. Now, at that point, if you have VM Player to host your VPN gateway, that's it. You're pretty much okay at that point. I didn't even realize it was you, Rich. What's up, man? Yeah, I saw your email, 0 to hero. What's up, Rich? Okay. Man, I can't believe that, man. Me and Rich go way back, guys. I'm not kidding. We're talking years. All right, guys. Any other questions for me? All right, I think we're doing great. Let's wrap this sucker up. Let's get this video out to everybody and these slides. I'll get this PowerPoint out to everybody. It'll probably take about a half hour for the video to render. And then check your emails tonight. Make sure you get all this stuff. And let's get rolling, guys. Thanks so much for participating. Let's have some fun.